Have you ever realized too late the weight of your own mistakes? Because I did, the day I saw my son look at me like I was a stranger. My name is Michael Turner, and this is the story of how I threw away the only two people who ever truly loved me, my wife Laura and our son Ethan, and how life made sure I'd pay the price for it. Back then, I thought I was chasing freedom. Now I know I was running straight into hell. It all started in Portland, Oregon, on a cold autumn morning. The kind where the air feels sharp against your skin and the smell of rain seeps through the windows. I remember sitting in my old pickup truck, staring at the house I used to call home. The same house where Laura used to hum while making pancakes, where Ethan's laughter used to fill the hallway. But that day, it was silent. Silent in a way that made my chest ache. I wasn't there to visit. I was there to sign the divorce papers. Laura had begged me not to go months earlier. She'd cried on the porch, holding Ethan in her arms, whispering, "Please, Michael, we can fix this." But I was too proud, too tired, too convinced that she and our simple life were what held me back from something more. Something more? What a joke. When I left, I thought I'd finally breathe. The first few weeks felt like victory. I moved into a small apartment downtown, close to bars, close to noise, anything that drowned out the guilt. I told myself I was living. But every night when I came home to silence, the ghosts of their voices filled the room. I'd open the fridge and see a single beer bottle, and suddenly I'd hear Ethan's laugh echoing, "Daddy, can I have a sip?" And I'd slam the fridge shut, angry at the memory. Angry at myself. I tried dating. I tried forgetting. I tried pretending I didn't care. But the truth is, I missed Laura's voice, calm but strong, and the way she used to put her hand on my shoulder when I was angry, grounding me. I missed Ethan's little footsteps running toward me when I came home from work. But I never went back. Pride is a prison with no bars, and I locked myself inside it. Years passed. Ethan grew up without me. Laura moved to another state, or so I heard. I told myself it was for the best. I built a life that looked decent from the outside, a steady job, a girlfriend, a rented house. But inside, everything was empty. I couldn't love again because the part of me capable of love was still standing on that porch, watching Laura cry. The real punishment came when I got sick. It started as exhaustion, then pain in my chest. At first, I ignored it, thought it was stress. But when the doctor said stage 4, the world blurred. Suddenly, every bad choice I'd made lined up in front of me like a jury. I was dying. Alone. The nights became the hardest. Hospitals are cruelly quiet after midnight. The smell of disinfectant, the rhythmic beeping of monitors, the soft steps of nurses in the hallway, all of it reminded me how far I'd fallen from the warmth of family. I'd stare at the ceiling, wondering if Ethan even remembered the sound of my voice. Then, one night, a nurse named Carla asked gently, "Do you have anyone you'd like me to call?" I wanted to say no. I didn't deserve anyone. But the words came out before I could stop them. My son, Ethan Turner. He's 20 now, I think. He doesn't know I'm here. Carla nodded softly. I'll find him. That night, for the first time in years, I prayed. Not for healing, I knew that was gone, but for a chance. A chance to say I'm sorry. I closed my eyes, remembering Ethan's small hand gripping mine at the zoo when he was 5. How he used to look at me like I was a hero. And how I'd shattered that image. I didn't know if he'd come. I didn't know if Laura would even let him. But deep down, I felt it. Destiny wasn't done with me yet. And then, 2 days later, I heard footsteps outside my hospital door. A hesitant knock. My heart stuttered. When I looked up, I saw him. A young man with my eyes, but none of my warmth. He stood there, silent, cold. And then he said words that cut deeper than any illness could. "So now you remember you have a son? Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Let me tell you exactly how it all began, how a man becomes the kind of father who walks away. Michael Turner wasn't born cruel. He was born tired, tired of being small, tired of being invisible. Growing up in Salem, Oregon, his own father was a mechanic who smelled of oil and disappointment. Every night, Michael watched him come home, slam the door, drink, and fall asleep on the couch while his mother scrubbed dishes in silence. Michael swore he'd never be like him. But life, as it often does, had other plans. At 23, he met Laura Bennett, a nursing student with dark hair and a laugh that filled every empty space in the room. She believed in him before he believed in himself. When Michael lost his job at the mill, she told him, "You're not a failure. You just need to find what fits you." They married young, too young maybe, and by 26, they had Ethan. Michael loved that boy at first more than anything. He would come home from work, dusty and tired, and still scoop Ethan up, toss him in the air, hear the little giggle that made the whole world right. But underneath that joy, there was a growing bitterness, a whisper that said, "You're stuck. You'll never be more than this." It started small. A coworker joking, "Man, you peaked early." Another saying, "Bet your wife's the real boss, huh?" It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Every word felt like a needle. At night, Laura would ask, "What's wrong?" and he'd say, "Nothing." She'd try to reach for him, and he'd turn away, pretending to sleep. The resentment grew roots. Money was tight. Dreams were tighter. He began drinking, just one beer after work, then two, then a six-pack every night. It dulled the shame. It made him feel like he was in control, even when everything was slipping. One night, Laura confronted him in the kitchen. Ethan was asleep in the next room. "You're scaring him, Michael. You're scaring me." "I'm just tired, Laura." Can a man be tired in his own damn house? Tired is one thing. Angry all the time is another. "You think I want to be like this?" The glass in his hand shattered against the counter. She flinched not because he hit her, but because she saw something die behind his eyes. He apologized the next morning. Bought flowers. Promised change. But the words meant less each time. The day he left wasn't a dramatic explosion. It was quiet. Laura stood at the doorway holding Ethan's hand. The little boy whispered, "Daddy, you forgot your lunch." Michael looked down, smiled weakly, and said, "Keep it, buddy. I'll get something later." He never came back. He told himself he needed space, a reset. That he'd return once he figured things out. But the weeks turned into months, and by the time guilt caught up, pride had already built a wall too high to climb. He saw Ethan once, from a distance, 2 years later, at a park. The boy was taller, his hair longer. Laura was there, holding his hand, laughing with another man. Michael sat in his truck, hidden, watching them. He should have gone over. Should have said, "I'm sorry." But instead, he started the engine and drove away, his hands trembling on the wheel. That was the moment he truly became his father. Years later, when the diagnosis came, he couldn't even say the words out loud. Cancer. It didn't feel real until the doctor said, "You should contact your family." Family. The word hit him like a stone to the chest. The truth was brutal. There was no one to call. He'd burned every bridge, one bottle, one silence, one broken promise at a time. Lying in that sterile hospital bed, he thought about his father, the man he swore he'd never become, and realized he'd become something worse, a ghost who was still breathing. He looked at his trembling hands, veins thin and pale, and whispered to no one, "I did this to myself." And in that moment, for the first time, he felt it, not anger, not regret, but a deep, hollow sorrow that filled every corner of his being. He thought, maybe this is my punishment. Maybe dying alone is what I earned. Pain doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps in, quiet and relentless, until it becomes the air you breathe. After Ethan's visit, the hospital room felt smaller. Michael had imagined this moment for years, a reunion filled with tears, forgiveness, maybe even a hug. But the look in his son's eyes told him the truth. Forgiveness wasn't coming. Not yet. Maybe never. Ethan sat on the edge of the chair, arms crossed, jaw tight. The young man's posture was pure armor. "So what? You're dying and now you want me to feel sorry for you?" "No, son. I don't want pity. I just wanted to see you." You wanted to see me now? After all these years? When Mom cried herself to sleep because of you. I know what I did. No, you don't. You left when I was 8. You missed everything. My first game. My graduation. You missed me. The words landed like punches. Michael's throat tightened, his chest burning with something worse than illness, shame. He wanted to explain, to tell Ethan that leaving wasn't about not loving them, but about hating himself. But how do you justify breaking your own family? There's no version of that story that sounds noble. I was weak. You still are. And then Ethan stood up. For a second, Michael thought he'd walk out. But instead, his son leaned in close, his voice low and trembling. Mom died 3 years ago. Did you even know that? The world stopped. The sound of the heart monitor faded. The fluorescent lights above him blurred into streaks. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. His mind screamed, Laura's gone? He'd imagined one day apologizing to her, maybe even seeing her smile again. But now, there would never be another chance. Tears he hadn't shed in years burned his eyes. Ethan just watched him, unmoved, hollow. She waited for you, you know? Until the end. Every time she got sick, she said, he'll come back. He'll come home. She believed in you longer than she should have. Michael covered his face with his hands, shaking. The sobs came quietly at first, then violently, the kind that make your ribs ache. He wasn't just crying for Laura. He was crying for the man he could have been, for every morning he'd chosen absence over love. Ethan turned toward the door. Ethan, please, don't go. Not yet. Why? So you can feel better about yourself before you die? No, because I don't deserve that kind of mercy from you, but I'm still asking for it. Ethan hesitated, hand on the door handle. His face softened for a fraction of a second, and then hardened again. You're right. You don't deserve it. The door shut, and Michael was alone again. He stared at the wall for hours, the words echoing inside him like a verdict. You don't deserve it. He thought of Laura, the way she used to sit on the porch in summer evenings, her hair catching the sunset, her voice gentle when she said, Michael, don't turn into your father. And yet, he had. The nurse, Carla, found him like that, silent, hollow-eyed. He came, she said softly. That's something. Michael looked at her, his voice almost a whisper. No, that's punishment. Seeing the person you broke, all grown up and carrying your scars. That night, sleep didn't come. The hospital hummed, machines beeping, air vents whispering, a distant cough in another room. Each sound pressed heavier against his chest. He thought of all the chances he'd had, birthdays missed, apologies unsent, moments lost to pride. The guilt was a living thing, clawing at him from the inside. And somewhere between one breath and the next, he broke again, not from illness, but from memory. He saw Laura's face in his mind that last morning, her voice trembling. Ethan needs you. And he'd said, he'll be fine. Now he knew the truth, Ethan hadn't been fine. None of them had. Lying there, Michael finally understood the real curse of his choices. You can run from people, but you can't run from what you did to them. He whispered into the dark, if there's any mercy left in this world, let me fix at least one thing before I go. And somewhere deep inside, he knew, the next time he saw Ethan, it wouldn't be to ask for forgiveness. It would be to earn it. And that was the moment everything began to change. The next morning, the hospital room smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant, the scent of another day he didn't deserve. The light filtered through the blinds, thin and cold, painting pale lines across Michael's face. He hadn't slept. Ethan's words echoed in his skull like a cruel lullaby. She waited for you. She believed in you. The weight of that truth pressed heavier than the oxygen mask on his chest. He stared at the 4-line dripping slowly beside him, each drop a reminder that time was running out. If death was inevitable, he thought, then maybe the only thing left to do was live right in whatever time remained. That thought, small, fragile, but alive, became a spark. Carla walked in, clipboard in hand, her eyes soft but knowing. You didn't sleep. Didn't deserve to. Deserving has nothing to do with it. You're still breathing, that means there's still something left to do. Her words stayed with him long after she left. Still something left to do. He picked up the hospital notepad by his bedside, the one where he'd been scribbling incoherent thoughts between painkillers. For the first time, the pen didn't shake. He began writing a letter. Not to Ethan, not yet. To Laura. Laura, you told me once that I didn't know how to love without fear. You were right. I was so afraid of being my father that I ended up becoming worse. I broke the one thing that made me a man, our family. If somehow you can see me, know this, I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to stay. By the time he finished, tears had soaked the paper. He folded the letter carefully and asked Carla to mail it to an address he remembered, Laura's sister's house in Spokane. It didn't matter if it reached her or not. It mattered that he said it. Then came the next step, Ethan. He asked Carla for his son's number. She hesitated, but eventually handed him the small slip of paper. His hands trembled as he dialed. The ringing felt endless. Then a voice, cautious, cold. Hello. Ethan, it's me. I know you don't owe me your time, but please, just hear me out. You said enough yesterday. You're right. I've said enough. This time I'll do something instead. Silence. Then a sigh, weary, but not hostile. What do you want, Michael? I want to leave something for you. Not money, not apologies. Just truth. Another pause. He thought the line would go dead. Instead, Ethan said quietly, You've got 5 minutes. Michael smiled faintly. 5 minutes. A lifetime if I use them right. He told him everything, the childhood, the fear, the nights he stared at their photo but couldn't face them. No excuses, no self-pity. Just truth. When he finished, his voice broke. I know I can't fix what I did, but if there's one thing I can give you, it's this. Don't run from love the way I did. Don't let pride turn you into me. For the first time, Ethan didn't hang up. He didn't speak either, but Michael could hear him breathing. That was enough. You think words change anything? No, but I had to start somewhere. Mom deserved better. She did. And so did you. The line went silent. Then Ethan whispered so quietly that Michael almost thought he imagined it. I'll think about it. Click. The call ended. But for Michael, something shifted. For years, he had been a man sinking slowly, watching the light fade. Now, for the first time, he had kicked toward the surface. He turned to the window. The city stretched beyond it, gray and alive. He could almost smell the rain coming. For the first time, he didn't hate the sound of his own heartbeat. He whispered to himself. No more running. He asked the nurse to bring him a calendar. She smiled, puzzled, but handed one over. He circled the next day in red ink. Tomorrow, he said softly, I start fixing what's left. The decision wasn't grand or cinematic, it was quiet, but it was real. Michael Turner had decided that before death came, he would live like a father again. And with that, he pressed the nurse call button, asking for something he hadn't requested in years, a visitor form for his son. The next morning, Michael woke before sunrise. The city outside was quiet, painted in shades of pale blue and silver. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar in his chest, not peace exactly, but purpose. The pain in his ribs was sharper now, but he welcomed it. It reminded him he was still here, still capable of one more day. A nurse came in to check his vitals. Rough night. No, actually, it was the best one I've had in a long time. He smiled faintly. The nurse looked surprised. Most patients didn't smile at this stage. After she left, Michael began to write again. Letters, this time not to Laura, but to people he had wronged or forgotten. Old friends he'd ghosted. His mother, still living in Salem. Even a coworker he'd lashed out at years ago. Each word felt like lifting a stone off his chest. He didn't expect forgiveness from any of them. But writing the truth, not excuses, just truth, was its own kind of medicine. By mid-afternoon, his room looked different. Sunlight spilled across the bed. The air didn't feel as heavy. Carla noticed. You're glowing, Mr. Turner. What changed? I stopped waiting for forgiveness to come to me. I started giving it away. That night, Ethan returned. He didn't knock this time, just walked in, holding a paper cup of coffee. He didn't smile, but he didn't look angry either. I was nearby. Figured I'd check if you were still alive. Barely. But I'll take it. Ethan sat down, placing the coffee on the tray. "I didn't bring flowers," he said dryly. Michael chuckled. "Didn't expect any." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. It was real, raw, human. Michael reached for a small notebook on his bedside table. "I've been writing some things down. About your mom. About me. About why I failed." Ethan crossed his arms. "You think I need a diary to understand what you did?" Michael shook his head. "No, but I think one day you might want to know why I couldn't be the man you needed. And if you ever do, it'll be here." Ethan looked at the notebook but didn't touch it. His expression softened barely, but enough. "She used to say you had good in you. Even after everything. She always saw light where there wasn't any." Maybe she was right. Michael's throat tightened. He wanted to reach out but didn't. Some distances can't be closed with a single gesture. The rest of the afternoon passed quietly. Ethan told him about college, his job, his plans. Michael listened like a starving man at a feast. Every word felt like redemption in motion. When Ethan got up to leave, Michael said softly, "Thank you for coming back." Ethan paused at the door. "Don't thank me. Just keep trying." After he left, Michael felt lighter. Not because everything was fixed, but because the silence between them had shifted. It wasn't filled with hate anymore, just the ache of something slowly healing. That night, as rain began to fall outside, Michael asked Carla for one last favor. "Could I go outside? Just for a minute." "It's raining." "Good. I need to feel it." She hesitated, then smiled. "All right, but only for 5 minutes." She wheeled him out to the small hospital garden. The air was cold and damp. The scent of wet grass and asphalt hit him like memory, childhood, laughter, 1,000 forgotten mornings. He lifted his face toward the rain and closed his eyes. For the first time in decades, he wasn't running, wasn't pretending. He was simply there. He whispered, "I'm still here, Laura. And I'm finally trying." When Carla wheeled him back inside, he felt exhausted, drenched, but alive in a way he hadn't been in years. He dried his hands, picked up his pen again, and wrote a single line on the next page of his notebook. "For the first time in my life, I'm breathing differently." Time began to move differently after that night in the rain. Days bled into weeks, and though the cancer spread, Michael's spirit did something strange. It began to heal. Not his body, not his lungs or his bones, but the part of him that had been broken long before the disease, his soul. Carla noticed first. He joked more. He asked about other patients. He smiled when Ethan's name came up. There was color in his face again, even if it was faint. "You're changing, Mr. Turner." "Maybe I'm just late to the party." She laughed. "Better late than never." Ethan started visiting once a week. At first, it was just for 10 minutes, silent, tense minutes filled with half-finished sentences. But gradually, something shifted. They began talking about music, sports, even politics. One afternoon, Ethan brought old photographs Laura had kept in a shoebox. The pictures were faded, edges curled from time. There was one of Michael holding baby Ethan in his arms, his smile wide, proud. Michael stared at it for a long moment. "That was the best day of my life. You remember it? Every second. I was terrified I'd drop you. You were so small, and I thought, this little person trusts me with everything." Ethan didn't reply. He didn't need to. The silence between them was no longer punishment, it was peace, cautious, but real. A few weeks later, Carla wheeled Michael outside again. The leaves had turned gold and copper, and the smell of autumn filled the garden. Ethan walked beside them, hands in his pockets. "You know, I used to think strength meant never asking for help, never showing fear. And now I know it means the opposite. It's about facing the mess you made and trying to clean it, even if it's too late." Ethan looked at him, eyes softening. "It's not too late for everything." Michael felt the words like sunlight through clouds. Over the next few months, his health declined, but his clarity sharpened. He began recording voice notes, telling stories about Laura, how she laughed at bad sitcoms, how she danced in the kitchen to Stevie Wonder, how she once stayed up all night just to help him rewrite a job application. He wasn't telling Ethan those stories to rewrite history. He was telling them so Ethan would never forget who she was, who they were, before the anger. Don't let your memory of her be painted by my mistakes, he said once. She deserves better than that. Ethan nodded, fighting tears. She'd be proud you're trying. I hope she knows. Somehow. A few days later, something unexpected happened. Carla brought in a group of volunteers, musicians who played for patients. One of them, a middle-aged man with a worn guitar, asked Michael if he wanted to hear something. Play something that sounds like forgiveness. The man smiled and began to play Landslide by Fleetwood Mac. The melody floated softly through the sterile air, and Michael closed his eyes. The lyrics hit harder than he expected, about getting older, about facing yourself, about change. Tears slid down his face, but they weren't heavy this time. They were cleansing. After the last chord faded, Ethan put a hand on his father's shoulder, the first touch in over a decade. You did love her, didn't you? Every day. Even when I was too broken to show it. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something close, the quiet beginning of grace. In the weeks that followed, Michael grew weaker. His hands shook when he tried to write, so Ethan began finishing his letters for him, word by word, their voices blending in ink. They wrote together about love, about fear, about how people aren't born cruel, they just forget how to stay kind. And one evening, as the sky outside burned orange and violet, Michael whispered, almost to himself, I finally understand. I was never unlovable. I just didn't know how to believe it. Ethan looked at him, eyes glistening. You get it now. Yeah, I finally do. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that comes when a lifetime of guilt finally exhales. I finally understand that I still had value, even broken. And for the first time, Michael Turner felt something close to peace. Forgiveness often comes disguised, sometimes not as mercy, but as a test. It had been nearly 6 months since Ethan first walked back into Michael's hospital room. They had rebuilt something fragile, something real. But fate wasn't done testing him. Because one morning, just as the leaves outside began to fall, someone from his past showed up. Carla entered the room holding a clipboard, her tone cautious. You've got a visitor. Should I send them in? Ethan again? No, it's your father. The words froze him. Richard Turner. The man whose silence had raised him. The man who had taught him how to work hard, drink harder, and feel nothing. Michael hadn't seen him in almost 20 years. When Richard walked in, he looked smaller than Michael remembered, shoulders stooped, eyes sunken, hair thin and gray. He wore the same mechanic's jacket from decades ago, oil-stained and torn at the sleeve. For a long moment, neither spoke. Heard you weren't doing too good. Guess the rumors are true. Cancer, huh? Yeah, tough break. The air between them was thick, heavy with decades of things unsaid. Why are you here? I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at what I did to you. That sentence, plain and quiet, cut deeper than any insult ever could. You didn't make me do what I did, Dad. I made those choices myself. Maybe. But I taught you how to disappear when things got hard. That's on me. Michael stared at him, this man who had never once said sorry. There was no anger left in him now. Only understanding. I spent most of my life trying not to be you. And in the end, I became exactly like you. Yeah, that's the curse. You run from it so hard, you end up where you started. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, wind rattled the window, the sound low and restless. You got a son, right? Ethan? Yeah, he hate you. He should. But he's trying not to. Richard nodded, eyes glistening. Then he's a better man than both of us. Michael managed to smile. He is. Richard took a slow breath. His voice cracked for the first time in Michael's life. I never said it back then, but I was proud of you. You worked hard. You were good with your hands. You had more in you than I ever did. Michael blinked. It was such a simple thing to hear, yet it landed like a prayer he'd been waiting a lifetime to receive. You could have said that 20 years ago. Didn't know how. Neither did I. They both laughed softly, painfully. Then, Richard reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, folded photograph. It was old, yellowed, edges torn. It showed Michael as a child, holding a baseball glove. Kept this in my toolbox. Don't know why. Maybe to remind myself I wasn't always the bastard I became. Michael stared at the photo, throat tightening. You weren't a bastard, Dad. Just broken. Guess that runs in the family. The two men looked at each other for a long time. The resemblance was undeniable, not just in their faces, but in their scars. Finally, Richard stood. You got something I never had, someone willing to forgive you. Don't waste that. He turned to leave, but Michael stopped him with a weak voice. Dad, wait. Richard turned, eyes tired. I forgive you. The words hung there fragile, trembling, true. For a moment, Richard didn't move. Then he nodded once, jaw tight, eyes glassy. Took us long enough. He left without another word. When Ethan arrived later that day, he found his father staring at the photograph. Who is that? Your grandfather. You talked to him? Yeah, and I forgave him. Ethan looked confused, maybe even angry. After everything he did to you? Michael smiled faintly. Son, forgiveness isn't saying they were right. It's saying you're done carrying the weight. Ethan said nothing for a while. Then, quietly, he nodded. Maybe one day I'll get there too. Michael reached out his trembling hand. Ethan hesitated, then took it. The touch was brief, but it carried everything words never could. And in that simple gesture, Michael realized he didn't need to be forgiven to die in peace. He just needed to forgive. I don't need revenge, he whispered, closing his eyes. I just needed release. You'd think that peace would come like a sunrise, bright, warm, obvious. But for Michael, it came like twilight, quiet, slow, almost unnoticeable. The days after his father's visit blurred into one another. The pain in his body grew sharper, yet his mind felt lighter than it had in decades. It was as if each goodbye had been a confession, and each confession had carved out a little space for grace to enter. Ethan kept coming. Sometimes he stayed for hours, sitting in silence, sometimes reading out loud from the notebook they'd been writing together. Michael liked hearing his son's voice fill the sterile air. It reminded him of all the nights he'd missed, bedtime stories, birthday candles, small talk at the dinner table. One afternoon, as rain tapped against the window, Ethan read a passage Michael had written weeks before. If you ever wonder whether I loved you, I did. Every day. Even when I was too cowardly to show it. The truth is, love never dies. It just waits for you to be brave enough to come back to it. Ethan stopped reading, his voice breaking. You really meant that? Every word. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything they'd both been afraid to say. After a while, Ethan spoke again. You know, I used to wish you'd die. I thought it'd make things easier. And now? Now I just wish we'd had more time. Michael smiled weakly. So do I. He reached for Ethan's hand, this time without hesitation. I was never a good man, Ethan. But you made me want to try. You were better than you think. Just too late. Better late than never. They both laughed softly through tears. Outside, the rain stopped. Sunlight filtered through the clouds, thin but golden. For the first time in months, the room didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a place where something sacred had finally happened, not a miracle, but understanding. That night, after Ethan left, Michael asked Carla to help him sit up. I want to see the city lights, he said. She rolled his bed closer to the window. The skyline shimmered beyond the glass, Portland glowing like a heartbeat in the dark. You've come a long way, Mr. Turner. I spent my whole life running. Now I finally stopped. He looked out at the lights, remembering Laura's laughter, Ethan's small hand in his father's weary eyes. For the first time, he didn't feel haunted by them. He felt held. You know what's funny? He said softly. I thought redemption meant changing the past. Turns out it just means accepting it. Carla smiled gently. That's the hardest part for most people. Yeah, guess I was saving the hardest part for last. He closed his eyes and took a slow breath. I used to think dying was punishment, he whispered. But maybe it's just release. The next morning, Ethan arrived early. He brought a framed photo, Laura holding baby Ethan, sunlight pouring through a kitchen window. He placed it on the bedside table. Mom used to keep this on her dresser. Thought you'd want it back. Michael stared at it, his throat tightening. She always looked like hope, didn't she? Yeah, still does. Michael smiled. His breathing was slower now, each inhale a little shallower than the last. But his eyes were clear, peaceful, almost radiant. You know, son, I spent half my life trying to prove I wasn't my father, the other half running from who I really was. But right now, I finally feel like myself. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. Who's that? Just a man who finally learned how to love without fear. They sat in silence, father and son, the city hum a faint lullaby in the background. Michael turned his gaze toward the photo, then back to Ethan. Tell her I kept my promise, he whispered. I found my way back. Ethan nodded, his voice barely a breath. She knows. Michael smiled, a small, tired smile that carried a lifetime of surrender. And that, he murmured, eyes closing, was the greatest lesson of all. 1 year later, the leaves had fallen again in Portland. The air carried that same sharp chill that once reminded Ethan of hospital corridors, rain-soaked streets, and the faint beep of a heart monitor. But this time, he wasn't inside a hospital. He was standing in a quiet park, holding a small wooden box. The bench beside him was empty except for a folded letter, the last one his father had written. Ethan had read it 100 times, but today, under the pale morning sun, it felt new again. If you're reading this, I guess I finally ran out of tomorrows. But if I did one thing right, maybe I gave you a reason to stop running too. Don't live like I did, waiting for forgiveness to find you. Go live so you never need it. Ethan closed the letter carefully and looked down at the ashes. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Ethan, softly, you finally made it home, old man. He opened the box and let the ashes scatter across the lake. The wind caught them, turning them into a thin silver veil that shimmered in the sunlight. For a moment, Ethan imagined his father's voice, a rough, calm, tired but free. Don't forget to breathe, son. He smiled. It had taken months after Michael's death for Ethan to find peace. The first few weeks were hard, too quiet, too final. He'd open his phone expecting a text that would never come, a message that said, "Still here, kiddo." But over time, he realized his father was still here in the letters, in the notebook they'd written together, in every small choice Ethan made to stay kind when it would have been easier to turn bitter. After the funeral, Ethan found Carla at the hospital. She handed him a small, sealed envelope. He left this for you. Said to give it when the time felt right. Inside was a photo of the two of them, one of the last they took together, taped beside a single line written in Michael's shaky handwriting. The day you forgave me, even a little, I started living again. That sentence became Ethan's anchor. Over the next months, he began volunteering at the same hospital. At first, just delivering flowers and books, but eventually sitting with patients who didn't have anyone else. He never talked about his father, but sometimes, when he held someone's hand as they drifted to sleep, he'd whisper, "You're not alone." And every time, he'd feel something shift inside him, like a small piece of the chain he'd carried all his life was quietly breaking. 6 months later, he started therapy. He stopped drinking on weekends. He even called his grandfather, Richard, the man he once swore he'd never speak to. He forgave you, you know. Then he was a better man than I ever was. Maybe. But he learned from you, even the hard parts. Richard didn't respond, but his voice cracked when he whispered, "I'm glad he found peace." That night, Ethan sat on his apartment balcony, watching the city lights just as his father once had. He thought about how life had a cruel symmetry, fathers and sons repeating each other's mistakes until someone finally decided to stop. And maybe, just maybe, that's what healing really was, not erasing the past, but refusing to pass its pain forward. As autumn deepened, Ethan visited the park more often. He'd sit on that same bench where he'd scattered the ashes and talk out loud, not to anyone who could answer, but to the quiet, to the wind, to the space between memory and forgiveness. You were right, Dad. Forgiveness isn't about saying they were right. It's about not letting it own you anymore. He smiled faintly. And I think I'm finally there. The sun broke through the clouds, soft and gold, casting ripples across the lake. Ethan placed the worn notebook, their notebook, on the bench. The cover was creased, the pages marked with fingerprints and tears. He whispered one last line, the same one his father had written at the very end. And that's why I wanted to tell this story, because sometimes the ones who break us are the same ones who teach us how to heal. He stood, brushed the dirt from his jeans, and walked away. Behind him, the wind flipped the notebook open to the final page, a single phrase written in shaky ink. Love without fear. If you've made it this far, thank you. Because this wasn't just Michael Turner's story, it's the story of anyone who's ever looked back and wished they'd done things differently. I've spent months piecing together his words, his letters, his memories, and what I've learned is simple but powerful. Forgiveness doesn't rewrite the past, but it frees you from reliving it. Michael taught me that. He wasn't a saint. He wasn't a hero. He was a man who broke everything he loved and then tried, at the very end, to fix what little he could. And somehow, that small act of courage was enough to change everything for the ones he left behind. His story isn't about dying. It's about choosing to live before it's too late. Maybe you're watching this right now, thinking of someone you haven't called in years. Someone who hurt you or someone you hurt. Maybe there's a message sitting unsent on your phone, words you keep rewriting but never send. This is your sign. Don't wait for tomorrow. Because sometimes tomorrow never comes. I used to think forgiveness was about the other person. Now I know it's about you, your peace, your freedom, your ability to move forward without the weight of yesterday pressing on your chest. Michael died with scars. But he also died lighter than he'd ever lived. Because before his last breath, he whispered 3 words that changed everything. I forgive you. That's all it took to turn a lifetime of pain into a single moment of grace. And maybe that's what we all need. Not a perfect ending, but a peaceful one. So if this story touched you, if somewhere inside you felt that ache, that pull toward healing, I want you to do something right now. Speech balloon in the comments, write one thing. Who do you need to forgive, or who do you wish would forgive you? You don't have to name them. Just acknowledge them. That's the first step toward letting go. And if this story made you feel something, if it reminded you that even broken people can still find redemption, then please, leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need it tonight. Because you never know, maybe this story will reach someone who's standing on their own kind of edge, waiting for a reason to turn back. Michael's life was proof that it's never too late to choose differently. He couldn't change his past, but he changed his ending. And maybe that's all that matters. When I close my eyes, I can still hear his voice raspy, fading, but peaceful. Tell them I finally stopped running. So that's what I'm doing. I'm telling you. Because maybe, just maybe, his story will help someone else stop running too. Thank you for watching. And remember, love without fear. Forgive without pride. Live without waiting. Now it's your turn. Comment below, what moment made you realize it was time to forgive? Like this video if it touched you. Subscribe for more real stories that remind us what it means to be human. We're not here to judge. We're here to feel, to heal, and to remember that even the hardest endings can carry light. Because sometimes, the most painful goodbyes teach us how to love again.